It was the war to end all wars. The First World War, also known as the Great War, swept across Europe like a wildfire, leaving a scar that would shape the world forever. It was a conflict that saw the collapse of empires, the rise of new powers, and the redefinition of warfare. But behind the trenches and treaties are stories, some bizarre, some unbelievable, that you probably haven't heard. It all started with a wrong turn. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, an event that ignited a chain reaction, pulling over 30 nations into war. But the irony? His driver got lost. After an earlier failed assassination attempt, the Archduke's driver made a wrong turn, leading him right into the path of Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old assassin who had stopped for a sandwich. Yep, a sandwich stop changed the world. What followed was carnage unlike anything seen before. Trench warfare turned the lush landscapes of Europe into muddy graveyards, filled with barbed wire, shell craters, and men barely surviving under brutal conditions. Speaking of survival, here's a lesser-known fact. Pigeons saved thousands of lives during the war. One pigeon, named Cher Ami, became a war hero. She was shot through the chest and still managed to deliver a message that saved nearly 200 soldiers from friendly fire. Imagine a bird taking a bullet and still saying, "Not today, death. I've got a job to do." The Battle of the Somme was one of the bloodiest battles in human history, with over 1 million casualties. On the first day alone, the British suffered more than 57,000 casualties, the worst day in their military history. But amidst this horror, a lesser-known tale stands out. During the battle, soldiers would sometimes play football in no man's land. Yes, amidst the death and destruction, they found moments to kick around a ball, proving that humanity, no matter how grim, can find ways to survive and connect, even in the face of disaster. World War I wasn't just the war of trenches. It was the birthplace of modern warfare. Tanks made their debut on the battlefield, awkward, slow, but game-changing. Airplanes were used for reconnaissance, but soon, dogfights between early fighter planes became a dangerous game of aerial duels. By the way, pilots in World War I didn't have parachutes at first. You heard that right. They had to choose between crashing with their plane or, well, crashing with their plane. I guess bailout wasn't a popular phrase back then. Trench life wasn't just about dodging bullets. Soldiers had to deal with massive rats, some reportedly the size of small cats. These rodents thrived in the trenches, feasting on fallen soldiers. In response, the soldiers' secret weapon? Rum. Lots of it. The British Army issued 400,000 gallons of rum during the war, because when you're stuck in a trench with rats and constant shelling, rum was probably the best way to cope. You know things are bad when rats are the least of your problems. On November 11, 1918, the guns finally fell silent. The armistice was signed, bringing an end to the Great War, but not without leaving a legacy of shattered nations, fallen empires, and a generation of lost souls. The war also left behind some pretty strange stories. Did you know that a Canadian soldier named Harry Colborne bought a bear cub during the war and named it Winnie? That bear eventually became the inspiration for Winnie the Pooh. So, amidst the bloodshed, one of the world's most beloved children's characters was born. The First World War reshaped our world, leaving lasting marks on politics, society, and culture. It gave rise to new nations, sowed the seeds for the Second World War, and introduced technologies that would define modern combat. But behind the grand strategies and tragic losses, there are countless human stories. Stories of courage, resilience, and even absurdity. The Tsar of Russia, King of England, and Kaiser of Prussia were not only political leaders but also cousins, their familial ties adding a complex layer to the war's dynamics. Alliances played a crucial role, with Serbia and Russia, Russia and France, and Austria and Germany forming bonds that would shape the conflict's course. And perhaps, if we look closely enough, we can see not only the horrors of war, but also the small moments of humanity that endured in its midst.